I would like to share with you one amazing thing which has happened this year. I would also like to offer, I think, 9 or so predictions about what our synthesizer world may have to offer in 2023. Yes, it's that time of year when we look back at the previous year and look forward to the next one. Now, this amazing thing which has happened this year, I don't have to look back 1 year, I actually have to look back about 19 months or so, back to the 10th of March 2021 when I posted my first video on this channel. If you ever look at the subscription numbers of the channels that you watch, you may have seen that I have hit 1,000 subscribers. Now, I just think it's a little bit weird, and it is totally amazing. I would like to say to each and every subscriber, thank you very, very, very much. It is just an amazing thing to happen. I didn't start this channel with the intention of building a YouTube channel or a brand as such. I may make another video about why I started this channel sometime in the future, but just to see the number of people who have actually subscribed it's just totally amazing. I have some absolutely super subscribers who comment on just about every video I make. You know who you are. Thank you very much indeed. I reply to every single comment on the videos that you leave. I think that's important, and we sort of build this little community and have chats about different things, and I think that is amazing and fantastic. So thank you again very, very much. It is deeply appreciated. Right, well, before we get too maudlin, let's get on to the predictions. Now, making predictions is quite difficult, especially about the future. So, I think the best way to do this is to look at existing trends and extrapolate them into the future and see what might happen. So that is essentially what I've done here. I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible, just to give you the headline figures, but I would also like to explain the trends which I've seen and why I have made these predictions, if you like. So the first one concerns something which I think affects absolutely everybody, and that is the chip shortage. Now, those who know apparently say that this has been easing towards the end of 2022 and should ease even further into 2023. So with a bit of luck, we will see even more synthesizers being produced and manufactured and released in 2023. Now, I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately, and most synth manufacturers keep their cards pretty close to their chest, so I have no idea what we may be seeing. However, there is one exception, and that, of course, is Behringer, who delighted us all throughout 2022 by announcing a new synth every week. Oh, so it seemed. So with the easing of the chip shortage and Behringer's manufacturing facilities, I suspect we will see a lot of these announcements, or at least some of these announcements, come to fruition. Now, Behringer has already announced the Pro 800. There are 2 videos on their YouTube channel if you want to check that out. Now, I vaguely remember seeing a video about this about a year ago, and it seemed to be ready for release, but obviously it wasn't. However, the release date for this now seems to be about March or April at a price of $599 US. At current exchange rates, that's about 500 Great British pounds. It'll be interesting to see how that actually translates into a street price. But this is still very cheap for an 8-voice polyphonic synthesizer module. So hopefully we will see a lot more synths from Behringer in 2023. Now, talking about prices, if you have half an eye on the synth market, you will know that most synth prices have gone up over the last few months. Moog famously made an announcement that they were increasing their prices by up to 40%. I made a video about that if you want to check that out. Other companies didn't make a song and dance about it, they just upped their prices. So unfortunately, another prediction has to be that synth prices will remain high or continue to increase even throughout 2023. It is a widely acknowledged fact that once a price goes up, it very rarely comes down. So prediction, I think this is number 4. What we have seen recently is the release of some, I would say, heavy hitting synthesizers, heavy hitting price wise, certainly. Now, it's not that long ago when a synth which was priced over £2,500 was considered to be expensive. Now, Sequential broke that barrier when they released the Prophet 5 and the Prophet 10, which pushed the price towards £4,000. Now, I'm talking about synthesizers and major synth manufacturers here, not workstations and that sort of stuff. And this year, over the last few months, in fact, we have seen the release of 2 heavy hitters price-wise, the Oberheim OBX and Moog's re-release of the Model D. Both come in at around £5,000. Now, I'd just like to make a little side note here. We may love synth manufacturers, but they are not our friends. They are businesses and they are there to make money, and they make money by selling musical instruments. They do not exist for our benefit. And as it is with most businesses, I think they will charge what they believe the market will stand rather than how much it actually costs to produce. So it's really interesting to see these heavy hitters, which I'm pretty sure will sell quite well and the companies will do very well from it. Behringer apparently has a different pricing policy. They see how much it costs to produce something and then stick on something for profit. They tend not to say how much can we charge for this piece of gear and get away with it. So that's rather nice and rather refreshing. Anyway, pushing this trend into 2023, I think more manufacturers will look at these heavy priced instruments, and I can see other manufacturers or possibly the same manufacturers releasing more gear at a pretty hefty price point. Now, since we have been talking about Roland, at least I think we have, or at least we should have been, this is a bit of a negative prediction, but it's a trend which I have seen over the last 12 months or so. I really don't know what has happened to Roland. They have turned from a hardware manufacturer into a software developer, and that is another trend which I'll get to in a second. But of the hardware they have been releasing, I know that most, since you could say, oh, it really should have had this or really should have had that, but just looking at some of the Roland releases, I think they've made such poor design choices, or I'm just, call it like it is. It's really bad, crazy, ridiculous design choices on some of their instruments. My biggest gripe, I think, at the moment is probably the JD08. If you want to know why I call it Roland's worst design synth ever, then check out the video. I'll pop a card up there, and link to all these things I mentioned will be in the description. But it's not just that. The Jupiter X, for example, is a powerhouse of a machine, but it requires a lot of menu type, and then there's sort of little screen for you to dive through. The Juno X has an even smaller screen. Even the 201 Space Echo, which they revamped, released, I had an original 501 Space Echo back in the 80s. But even this new 201, I believe it had 4 presets which you could access from the front panel, and it had more presets, but you had to access them via MIDI. Really, I struggle to actually believe that Roland has any working musician on his design team. Anyway, so enough of that. I actually love Roland. I'm just a bit confused about what direction the company is heading. Anyway, pushing this forward into 2023, I sort of suspect that some really poor design decisions will be made on future Roland products. It's a terrible thing to say, but I'm just looking at the past and pushing this into the future. I also predict that most reviewers will either gloss over the shortcomings or not mention it at all. So moving on, we have seen over the last 12 months and even before that, a lot of companies have been reissuing old models. We've probably seen more old model reissues than new model arrivals. I haven't done any sums on that, so don't quote me on that. So just pushing this forward into 2023, I suspect we may see even yet more reissues of older equipment appearing. I am specifically not including Behringer in this, as we know Behringer seems to specialise in producing clones of older equipment. I'm talking about other synth manufacturers re-releasing some of their older instruments. Now, prediction number 7, and this is just a continuation of what has been happening in 2022 and even before that. It's been quite interesting to see traditional hardware synth manufacturers converting their synths into soft synths. Roland has probably pioneered this with the Roland Cloud, but everyone seems to be jumping on board with this. Korg has their legacy collection, I think it's called. Moog, I think, surprised everyone by releasing software versions of their Moog Fugger pedals. Now, when you think about it, I think software has got to be a better business model than hardware. Once the R&D has been done and the thing has been programmed, you don't have to deal with distribution costs. Well, obviously you have to pay for the server, no way to take payment, but there is no shipping involved. You don't have to deal with manufacturers, you don't have to deal with wholesalers, you don't have to deal with retailers, you don't have to deal with returns, you don't need any engineers to fix anything which may have gone wrong. You just need software engineers and please good technical support team to help in case there are any problems. So I suspect we will see existing manufacturers and even other companies producing software versions of their instruments, or perhaps even moving over to software entirely. And on the subject of music software, you may have noticed a number of companies producing subscription options. Now, this is a really good business model for the company, and it gives users access to dozens of instruments and sounds for a relatively small monthly fee. Now, I've said before, and I will probably say again, I'm not a big fan of paying for something which I will never actually own. But I can see it being attractive to many users who don't want to splash out hundreds of pounds, hundreds of dollars on software if they can pay a small monthly fee and get access to even more gear than they could possibly afford. So I can see the benefits there. But this is a good business model for the companies, and I suspect we will see even more companies coming on board with subscription models for their software. And finally, I think this is prediction number 9, and this is probably the one I am the most certain of. I predict that every one of us will spend more than we would really like to spend on music hardware and software in 2023. So that's my predictions for the coming year. So what did you think of them? Am I on the right track with my trend extrapolation examples? Are there any trends I have not mentioned which you can see moving into 2023? Do you have any predictions for what we might see in our synthesizer universe in the coming year? Let me know in the comments. As always, I really do appreciate you spending time with me watching my videos. So for that, thank you very much indeed. I wish you a very happy musical 2023, and I will see you again after the big clock strikes 12.